And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel. Welcome to the Dice Tower. Today we're taking a look at a two-player game called Tiki. I really didn't know anything about this game. I know it was a Kickstarter style game and it was an abstract strategy game. And I just happened to run across it at a convention, and the really gorgeous little Tiki pieces attracted me to it. And despite people saying that I don't like abstract strategy games, I tend to enjoy two-player abstract strategy games, and this one looked pretty, so of course that kind of draws me in. But the question is, it was very small, and I wondered, is it a good game? So I played a game of it, then instantly wanted to play another game, which doesn't necessarily mean the game's good, but means, I'm like, did I get it? Because I don't think I got it on my first game. Well, after that, things got more interesting, but before we talk a little bit about that, let's go over how the game works. There are 9 tiles that you're going to randomly place out in a 3x3 grid. Each player is going to get 8 tikis of their color. And then you have 7 pineapples here that players are trying to get. The first person to get 4 pineapples is going to win, or if all the pineapples are spoiled, whoever has the most pineapples at that point wins the game. On your turn, you have one of 2 different actions. You can create a new totem, which basically says you take one of your totems and you can put it in any empty village. So maybe this. Or you can move a totem. You just simply move it from one spot to the next. Now, of course, someone can move on top of you. And if you move a totem where you're on top of somebody, you have to move 2 spaces for a 2 totem, so it would move like this, 1, 2. Dropping off 1 totem on the top of each spot that you've been on. So maybe if I was here, I moved here, purple puts 1 here, I go like this. And now there's a totem of 3. Whenever there's a totem of 3, they're going to be removed from the board. The person on top is the controller, and they're going to get the number of pineapples that are shown. This one shows 1. Here we have 2. These 3 are 0, and these 2 are -1, which means one of your pineapples spoils. It's turned over and is put to the side. Other than that, you collect 1 or 2 pineapples. You can also play with the shaman variant, where you turn these over, and when you land on one of those, you're going to move the shaman. You can use this piece as a shaman or this piece, and that basically just means you can't go from one of these spots to the spot next to it. This one looks a lot nicer, but this one's a little easier to stick between the tiles as you move around. That's pretty much the whole game. So you just got to remember, when you move, only the top person controls it, and when you land on somebody else, then you can move it again in the future, but you have to drop off 1 each time you go to a spot. And as soon as there are 3 in any one spot, the person on the top gets the reward or penalty of that spot, and then all 3 are removed. There's also a bunch of variants that you can download the rules for off the internet, and which have a bad tiki and some other tiles that you rearrange things. This is a stretch goal, but I think it's in every copy, not sure. It was in the copy that I got. The components for this game are absolutely incredibly nice. I mean, almost too good. I mean, these tikis, they look fantastic. Look at these guys, they're smiling. The yellow tikis are missing some teeth. The purple ones have a full teeth. I don't know, they just look nice, and they're easy to stack on top of each other and move around the board. They feel nice and chunky. The tiles themselves are very clear. This is for if you're randomizing them, but it's really easy to see what each of the tiles does. And then there's a really nice foam core insert here in the box, and all the pieces fit into that. I mean, component quality for this, off the charts. When it comes to abstract strategy games, I am looking for 2 things. I want a game that's simple. I don't need to remember 200 different rules for the game, and a game that offers some pretty crunchy choices. I think Tiki does that. In fact, the crunchiness of the game is really high. When I would play this game, I would sit there and I'm like, okay, if I move that piece there, then they can move there. It's really interesting. And I think it's interesting in its base game. Once you start adding in the modules, it changes it up even more so. But even as its base game, there's really only, on your first turn, you have 9 choices. That's it. You put 1 tiki out on the board. then the next person has 8 choices. They put their tiki out of the board, and then in your turn, now you have maybe 10 to 12 choices, because you can put out a tiki or you can move one that's on the board. But every time you move, every time you make a pile of 2, things get deadly. If I put a pile of 2 on top of the 2 tile, for example, then if you can jump on me, boom, you just got 2 bananas. 2 pineapples. It's really dangerous. So I have to be careful that doesn't happen. And many times, I also don't want you to put one of my tikis on top of a pile of 3, which removes 2 of mine off the board and gives me no pineapples. Those 0 pineapples, why are they there? Because you can put your opponent on them, removing 2 of their tikis out of the game, and maybe only 1 of yours, or if you're really lucky, 3. And so it's really interesting back and forth. And then once you start changing things and blocking paths, again, it doesn't feel like there's a ton of decisions in the game. And it's possible, I'm not smart enough, it's possible this game could be solved because the decision tree is that small. But wow, the stress levels as I sit there and play this, I'm like, I don't know. Now, there's a lot of games about moving pieces and trying to accomplish goals. This one reminded me similarly maybe of Santorini and other games of that regard where you're moving little pieces on the board. And this one again feels overproduced is a strong word because I actually really like the pieces, but I can get that some people come in here and go, ooh, this looks pretty and cool, and find out that it's actually a crunchy little abstract strategy game. But I don't mind that at all. I want my games to look pretty, but the game itself is kind of small, easy to teach, but I really think that if you're playing for the first time against someone else, they're going to whoop you. I know this from experience. So this is one that I think pretty highly of, actually. I think it's a pretty neat game. I think it's an underrated game. I haven't heard anyone talk about it. But if you're looking for a good back and forth 2-player game that's really quick to set up, really fast to teach, but has some pretty in-depth stuff. Like I said, maybe there's a limit, maybe there's a ceiling to the number of strategy, but then again, you can add in some of these variants and change things up. And there's also random setup, so nothing is necessarily set in stone. Either way, check it out. That's Tiki. Dice Tower Judgment approved.